Welcome back to Give Me Five with Jones and Eli. Eli, the stars, the cosmos, they're such a interesting and amazing, maybe somewhat unexplored part of our world. What do you know about constellations? You ever whip up that knowledge?
I know very little about constellations. What I do know, the Little Dipper, you got the Little Dipper, you got the Big Dipper, you got Orion's Belt,
Uh-huh.
and that might be it, actually. That might be the extent of my constellational knowledge. What I will say is I think some of these are a little bit of a stretch. You know, my one friend had this app, like the Constellation Tracker app, and I was looking up at the sky, and I saw six stars kind of in a line with one jutting out, and I was like, wow, that looks like six stars in a line with one jutting out. And he said, no, actually, that's a lobster. And I said, how? I don't really get that. And I said, I guess freedom of imagination, creativity, whatever. But I felt like a little bit of a leap in something there. I don't know.
Well, you think about it. Back in the day when they were inventing these, they were A, they were bored as shit, and B, there was no Google Images, so I couldn't, Sophocles tells me, "Hey son, that's a lobster." I couldn't go on my phone and Google a lobster and be like, "What are you talking about, you old geezer?" I'd be like, "Okay, that's the lobster." If that's even a constellation, bro. I don't even know if you're just making that up, but I've never seen the lobster constellation. I I took a class this semester. I took astronomy and it was fascinating. And we would go up on this fucking parking garage and just look up at the sky. First of all, dude, it's so glamorized stargazing. It's not that fun. Do you know how heavy the telescopes are?
I can only imagine.
They're pulling you around. You're trying to see the star. You can't zoom in. You cut your eye on the glass, so suddenly you're bleeding. And it's like, oh, finally I see the moon. I could have looked at that shit without it. I think stargazing is overrated in a scientific sense.
Have you ever seen a planet? Sometimes I see these crazy like yellow ones, and I'm like, oh wow, that's like a yellow star. And like somebody I'm with is like, oh no, that's a planet. Like as if they know everything. And I'm like, oh okay. I didn't know that was a thing.
Well, there's another app. I even have the light version. I didn't even have the 199 version where you can like go around and you can see like, oh, like in this part of my wall right here, this is technically where Venus is. So great. If I was to run through my wall and just keep running, I guess I would be on Venus. They have that technology.
I'm sure that's very useful to somebody out there. I don't know if it's very useful to you, in your stargazing prowess. No, it's just very curious to me how people get into stargazing to begin with, right? You see the stars, they're cool, fine, they're pretty to look at, but what's the ultimate goal of stargazers? I know there's scientists out there trying to research other planets and whatever, but the ultimate
Mm.
goal of the average you and me is just looking at these stars. Like, is there a career coming out of that?
No, I mean, unless you're A, a scientist, or B, an astronaut, I don't see really how it serves you. I would say you got to get a different hobby. I understand wanting to engage with nature, but like grow some fucking plants. That's what I would say because you're not going to be changing anything about the stars. I get it. I'm gassing it down a little bit. It is cool to look through a telescope that actually works. I think the most important setting where stars could work in your favor or some star knowledge or something to say, you know, you're with a lady, you're lying under the stars, right? And then you might want to have a few like you could even show some knowledge in that moment. You say, "Hey, that's Orion's belt," but fully knowing that it's probably not Orion's belt.
I think that's actually the beauty of the stargazing process in general. Is as much as we're saying we don't know anything about it, nobody really knows anything about it. Unless you're dating a stargazer or an astronomy major, professional lady, she probably doesn't have any idea about what it is either. So you could hit her with the old lobster line, and you could even say, "Wow, that constellation there, they call that the Jones and whatever your name is constellation. It's actually they made a constellation of us." And I think half the time she'd be enamored by it. Wow, you made that for me?
See, that would be the best if you if you had somewhat knowledge to not call like the Orion's belt the couple constellation or whatever. But yeah, I think constellations at their biggest or at their most basic point are an improver's springboard. It is a paradise because you could say, look at that constellation. It only comes out once a year and it's the constellation of love. And like you said, nobody will ever know. I think that's what they're made for.
I think it's beautiful. The only thing that I don't like about constellations and stars in general, you ever have this feeling when you're looking at a star and you're like, wow, such a bright star. It's so beautiful. Wow. Oh my God. And then it turns out to be a plane. That's like the ultimate heartbreak. I think that's where I first experienced heartbreak was being a little kid looking at a star, being like, wow, it's amazing, pulling it out to everybody. And then 2 seconds later, you see it just jet away in the distance. Oh shit. It's a Delta flight on the way to to Alaska or something.
Well, I've certainly seen things moving through the air, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a shooting star, or that's a UFO. And it turns out it's a building that's blinking and hasn't moved for 20 minutes. So the sky will amaze you, but the sky will fool you for sure.
Really quickly, have you ever seen a shooting star?
No, have you?
I think so, but I don't really know.
No, you haven't. It was a fucking Delta flight going
It's
to
a topic for
Nashville.
another time. It's a topic for another time.
It was Give Me Five with Jones and Eli. Eli, thanks for talking.
It's always a pleasure, John. Talk to you soon.